It's time for the movie raid movie review, and tonight I'm going to talk about Air. Now, this film is about two maintenance workers that are facilitating and maintaining these last remnants of humanity of people that are in these kind of a chronogetic type of stasis, and they have to wait for a cycle to clear up because what happened was a bio weapon warfare occurred, chemical warfare, and basically destroyed the entire city, if not the world. And so the last drastic measures would be facilitate, these people who represent each, important aspects of life. For example, they all, specialize in, let's say, plant or, human or, whatever it is that we need in order to live life again or to restart life. So these two main maintenance people who facilitate and continue to, do their usual maintenance stuff. But here's the kicker. Their air is limited in the facility. So every time that they wake up from their pods, they have about an hour, 2 hours, give or take, on what they need to do. And then they have to go back in their pods once the time's up or before the time's up. And then they go back to sleep, and then they got to wait for the next cycle and then they wake up and do all this all over again, and so forth and so forth. So, and these are the only two characters in the whole film. I can't remember the other actor's name. I can't really pronounce it, so I apologize. And I know one of you guys are definitely going to correct me on this, but in the comments at least. And I do know his name. I just can't pronounce it correctly, and I really don't want to try to butcher it. So, and then you got Norman Reedus, who also plays as a main role in this film, one of the other maintenance worker, as you know him from The Walking Dead, Mallrats, and so forth. So anyway, as far as these two characters go, that is our whole objective. However, the story goes that one of the maintenance workers, their pod malfunctions, gets caught on fire, and so they have to go find spare parts for this. And so they do find where to find these spare parts in the facility, but once they do so, but they have to break open the seal, which actually takes away about half an hour of their actual air. So they have a lot less time to find the main parts to fix that other maintenance pod. Otherwise, if that doesn't happen, guess what? He's going to die, and the other one's going to, live and be in his pod, and so forth. And so the thing is, there's an added element to this. One leads on that the other maintenance worker might be crazy. But again, if you haven't seen this film, I'm only giving you an idea of this. I'm not going to give away what is this character's deal as far as being, quote, crazy. But he's not really crazy per se. Let's just say he has visions, and it's very explanatory when you're watching this film. I'll just leave it at that on that. But what makes this story a little bit different and unique, in my opinion, is that this is a what-if type of scenario. What if the world, all these countries have whatever their big beefs were, and they decide, hey, we're going to, throw chemical warfare on you, and they do the same thing. They drop bombs, but most of it, it's a big chemical war. They drop this big chemical bomb that, just kills everybody for the most part. And, basically destroys everything. And then here it is, you got the last remnants of humanity, people that you have to keep alive and have to make sure the facility that you're in, stays maintained and whatnot, and keep track of the cycle and so forth and so forth. And I really like that. I really like the fact that there's only two people as the main characters involved with this. And then you got kind of like a psychosis thing. Now, this is not a psychological movie. It's not. I'm just saying that one of the characters do go through a psychological, episode throughout the film. And again, this goes to the point where, they lose oxygen. The main focal point of it is that they lose a chunk of oxygen, and they go, find parts that go through this whole process of doing this, while they have limited oxygen, and not only that, they try to get the, oxygen kicked back on, whatever oxygen they have reserved left in order to, get all this done. And it may sound short, but it's not really that short as far as story goes. It may sound like it the way I'm saying it, but it's something definitely different that you never really seen. You may if you read the reviews, chances are you're going to see something about people, chasing other people with guns and stuff like that. Well, that's not the case, because I saw that review about it after I've seen the movie, and I highly disagree with that. It's not guys, just chasing other guys with guns. It's not. There's a moment that has a person with a gun, one of the two members that have a gun, and, but that's all I'm going to leave it at. But this film, I felt it definitely deserves a chance to be looked at. I feel that it definitely has a big sense of subtlety and kind of like a pause between two characters. Like here's again, like, put yourself in this kind of situation, man. You're like you it's just you and the other maintenance person in this scenario, and you might as well you're fighting loneliness for the most part, even though you're working with somebody. But you're getting your pod, and you get out of your pod X amount of months later to do the same thing over and over, just to keep these people alive, and then in hopes that these people will be able to get out of their pods and then try to figure out how to restart life again. And that's the whole ordeal. That's the whole meaning with these two maintenance workers. And of course, psychologically, between one of them, the other one, has a big issue with that one. And there's definitely let's just say there's definitely tension between the two. And that's where I mentioned that there is a gun involved, when I mentioned about the review comment. But I would say that Norman does a really good job in this movie as an actor in this film. Again, it feels minor characterization, but that's not really a bad thing. I don't consider it as a bad thing in this film. I consider it as, like, between the moments between the two, what goes on in their heads, as they're going through this whole ordeal. And there's no real music, like no score per se in this film. There is a score to the film, but like it's kind of like a silent soundtrack. I mean, there has their moments, but I like films that doesn't have as much music involved with it, because it just puts you in the moment what these characters are going through, and it gives you the idea, and it's kind of like, okay, what's going to happen next? And this kind of film, that kind of puts you that way, because it gives you that sense of loneliness, and it gives you that sense of what happened, what happened to the outside. And it does explain, like I said, bio warfare, which, again, it's not really giving it away in the story. It's actually explaining that, because one of the characters, the Norman Reedus character, he actually watches the pre-recorded news of the whole situation. So, and again, there's nobody around, Basically, most of the population was killed off by the chemical that was put in the air. So once as you go through the story itself, again, this is not like a confined space type of film of how I'm saying it, because they gotta go through here, they gotta go over here, and they're fighting the fact that they have limited oxygen. I mean, they got this whole ordeal and this tension between two characters. I will definitely give this film out of a 10. I would say it definitely deserves at least a 6.8. Now, there is no major action involved in this film. There is no real major drama in this film. I mean, you got two main characters in this film. That's it. That's all the ones you see on the screen. And I don't consider it as a bad thing. But I see it as, the kind of relationship they both have X amount of cycles they've went through, to working on in this facility and whatnot. That's what I see it as. But I don't see, it's kind of simplicity, but it's kind of like a dark simplicity for this type of story, for what these characters are going through. And I would definitely give that kind of score for this type of film. It's definitely worth a watch. It may not be the biggest action, let alone dramatic or anything that you would be normally used to watching, but it's definitely worth a watch, and it's definitely something. If you're a Norman Reedus fan, add this to your collection. You might like it.